Does Bible prophecy say that the Saudis are going to make peace with Israel? Is that why so many of us have been bullish on the possibility, the increasingly likely prospect we've been thinking and saying and writing, that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the de facto king of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, would be moving towards making a peace and normalization deal with Israel? Are we saying that because Bible prophecy says it, that Saudis and Israel will make peace? And is it true that the Saudis are still moving towards peace with Israel, or are they actually backing up? Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg with a YouTube exclusive for the Rosenberg Report. This is a very interesting topic, and I want to take it in a couple different pieces from a couple different angles. First, you need to know that there was historically and biblically peace between the people of Arabia, what is now known as Saudi Arabia, but the people of Arabia and Israel. You're like, there was? I thought that Saudi Arabia was one of the most anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, nations kingdoms in the modern era, that was backing the Arab attacks against Israel in 1948 and 1967 and 1973, and filling mosques with anti-Semitism for a century. Well, that part's all true. Things have changed once the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS as he's known, once he came to power a few years back, he began to change all that. But we're not yet at a peace and normalization deal with Israel and the Saudis. But in the Bible, there was peace at one point between the people of Arabia and Israel. You're like, are you sure about that, Joel? I'm 100% sure. Think of the story of the Queen of Sheba. Okay, the Queen of Sheba, Sheba in biblical times was Arabia. It was the territory we call today the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as Yemen. Okay, that's the whole southern part, southeastern part of the Arabian Peninsula. And remember what happened? The Queen of Arabia, the Queen of Sheba, she kept hearing that there was this very wise and incredibly wealthy and just shrewd and interesting and peace-loving king in Israel. His name was Solomon. So she's like, I want to go meet this guy. He has so much knowledge and so much wisdom. Let's go talk to him. So she loaded up her camels and her caravan of all kinds of spices and gold and all kinds of jewels and other things from Arabia, and she headed to Jerusalem. And what did she do? She got a meeting with King Solomon. And she said directly that she'd heard about this wisdom, and they spent time talking. And sure enough, she got to see God's favor on the king of Israel, King Solomon. She got to see not only the wisdom, but the discernment and the favor of God, the God of Israel, the God of the universe, but specifically who calls himself the God of Israel. She got to see this man and his relationship with God and the favor God had put on him. And she was so impressed by this, she gave him all these treasures. And she effectively said, let's make peace. And they built a relationship. They built a peace treaty. Go read it. Go look it up in the Bible. Read it for yourself. This is one of those fascinating times where, after all that we know in our modern times about the Arab-Israeli conflict, you would think that the Arabs have never had peace with Israel. Okay, but that's not true. It wasn't the Saud. The Saud is a specific family that took over much of the Arabian Peninsula about 300 years ago. But the point is, yes, the people of Arabia made peace with Israel, and Israel reciprocated. That's a great thing. Now, goes back to the question. Does Bible prophecy say that Saudis and the Israelis are going to make peace in the future? No. Okay, I'm sorry to disappoint you. There's no specific prophetic passage in anywhere in the Bible, Old Testament or New, that says that there will be peace between these countries in any type of specific way. But when you read Ezekiel 38 and 39, particularly chapter 38, about the coming war of Gog and Magog, where Russia teams up with Iran and Turkey and Libya and Sudan and these other countries, and they come to surround Israel and attack Israel in the last days of history, and then God's going to supernaturally intervene and defeat all those nations. When you read the beginning of Ezekiel 38 about this coming prophetic attack on Israel, the preamble, the prerequisite of that prophecy is that Israel's living securely in the land. The Jews have come back after exile, rebuilt the ancient ruins, made the deserts bloom. Things are going really well in Israel. Things are peaceful, they're prosperous, and Israel has quiet on all sides. And you say, well, that has never happened. Well, not since the days of King David and Solomon, they have not, right? But things are moving in that direction, right? 4 Arab-Israeli peace treaties known as the Abraham Accords. Now, the defeat of Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed terror organization in Lebanon, right? And things are quieting in Lebanon. The fall of Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, the demon of Damascus, he's gone. Are there still challenges in Syria? Yes. That's a topic for a different YouTube exclusive. But are things quieter between Syria and Israel? Yeah, mostly, yes. Gaza, Hamas is almost defeated. We're heading there. Just don't stop praying for it. And of course, Iran's nuclear threat has been decimated by the combination of U.S. and Israeli, mostly Israeli, but also U.S. Military attacks. Okay? So there is not a specific prophecy, even in Ezekiel 38, that says definitively the Saudis make peace, like some sort of specific treaty. But what does it say? It says that Israel is living securely in the land. After centuries of exile and terror and war and problems, the Jews have come back to Israel, made the deserts bloom, rebuilt the ancient ruins, and things are quiet. The Jews are living securely in the land. The word peace, shalom, is not used in the Hebrew in Ezekiel 38 or even in most modern translations. The word peace isn't used, but living securely in the land, that's the exact phrase. And for most Israelis, most evangelicals were like, that's pretty good. Jews back in Israel, a prophetically reborn Israel, and living securely. In fact, Israel is so prosperous, it becomes so rich because it's peaceful and calm, that this is what triggers, one of the things that triggers Gog, this Russian evil dictator, to come after the Jewish people of Israel. Okay? And now what else does it say? As you read through Ezekiel 38 and 39, when Gog and Magog, when that all begins to happen, Russia, Iran, Turkey, these other countries come to surround Israel and get ready to attack Israel, the text tells us that the people of Sheba and Dedan start saying to Gog, why are you doing this? Are you doing this to plunder the people of Israel, meaning to steal their riches? Now, that doesn't tell us definitively that the people of Sheba and Dedan have a peace treaty with Israel. It does strongly imply that the people of Sheba and Dedan aren't in the conflict. They're not in the coalition with Russia, Iran, Turkey, Libya, Sudan, and these other countries. They're not part of that. They're outside. And that would be hard to have imagined a few years back or any time in the last, 8 decades, that the Saudis weren't somehow involved in an attack against Israel, either verbally or practically, right? But we are in a time where the Saudis are not at war with us. They're not trying to make problems for Israel. Okay? That's interesting. And that's because of the rise of Mohammed bin Salman. That's because of the rise of this moderate, peacemaking leader, the de facto king. The king is the elderly king, King Salman, MBS's father. He's, as I record this, he's still alive. But he's infirm, he's elderly, and he's not doing well. So effectively, the kingdom is being run by this young man who wants to make peace with Israel. Now, I'm not just making that up. We're not just inferring or assuming or anything that MBS wanted to make peace with Israel. He said as much. Now, there's some things he said to me personally in our 2 meetings, one in Riyadh, one in Jeddah, both 2 hours long. There's some things that he said to me that I can't tell you because they're off the record. But what did MBS say to Bret Baier on Fox News just about a month or 2 before the October 7th attacks by Iran, Hamas, and so forth, Hezbollah and others? What did MBS say? He told Brett Baer of Fox News that Israel and the Saudis were very close to establishing a peace and normalization agreement, and that he was optimistic that that's where they were going. And you could see from the body language, from what he said, that he wanted that deal. Now, it's possible that by being so open about wanting peace and normalization with Israel, that the Saudi de facto leader may have inadvertently triggered the Iranian regime to launch the seventh front attack against Israel. Now, I'm not blaming MBS. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is, by being so open that this was about to happen, I think MBS even said the term soon. I think he said very soon. He thought it could happen. This freaked out the supreme leader, the so-called supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Khamenei. And he set into motion this horrific attack, starting with the attack by Hamas on October 7th, then Hezbollah against Israel on October 8th, and then all the other countries and their, or other movements, the Houthis and so forth. So this is not guessing. It's not speculation. We're not, looking into some crystal ball and saying, does the current Saudi de facto leader, Mohammed bin Salman, does he want peace with Israel? Does he want normalization? Does he want trade, tourism, investments, back and forth? He does want that. He said as much. We're not there yet. But could you argue that in that respect, the fact that the Saudis effectively have peace with Israel, want peace with Israel, aren't trying to, the Saudis aren't attacking Israel. They're not firing ballistic missiles, just the opposite. They've been shooting some of these missiles down. So it's important for you to know that while there isn't a definitive prophecy that says specifically that there's going to be a peace treaty between Arabia, what we now know as Saudi Arabia, and Israel, there's still the strong implication of it in the early verses of Ezekiel 38. Now, an important point. Okay, you're like, but you mentioned that the people of Sheba and Dedan are asking this Russian dictator, why are you doing this? What are you doing? So the implication is they don't want this to happen, but they're confused. Why would you do this? Are you going after plunder? What is it that you want from the Israelis? I thought things were calm and quiet. That's the implication of the beginning verses of Ezekiel 38. Now, who are Sheba and Dedan? Well, I just told you that Sheba is Arabia. Okay? Now, some people have said, the Ethiopians say the Queen of Sheba was Ethiopian. I know they say that. It's not accurate, but it doesn't. It could be that because the Queen of Sheba was so powerful and so rich, she may have had tremendous influence, even effective control over Ethiopia, in which they would embrace her as the Queen of Sheba as being theirs. But she was from Arabia, southern Arabia, what we now call Saudi Arabia, and even some of Yemen. But Dedan is another clue. What's Dedan, and where are the people of Dedan? Well, that is Saudi Arabia also. You're like, how do you know that? Well, look at ancient maps. But even more recently, when I went to Saudi Arabia for the first time, at the invitation of the Crown Prince, he actually, after he met with us, he said, you really need to go to the Saudi State Historical Museum. I'm like, okay. In fact, we're going to send you there on Friday. I'm like, okay. We didn't understand that actually the museum is closed on Fridays. That's their holy day. It's like a Sunday for Christians. But nevertheless, they opened it just for our delegation of evangelical leaders. And as we walked around and had an official guide taking us through a VIP tour, what did we see? We saw this huge map of ancient Arabia, and it said Sheba and it said Dedan. Sheba and Dedan, those are the people of Saudi Arabia today. Those are ancient names. Just like Gog, or just like Magog is not a name we use today, but when you do the historical detective work, you find out that's Russia. Okay? What's my point? My point is the Saudis want peace with Israel. But, this is an important thing as we wrap, there is some movement in recent months that the Saudis are backing away from making a formal peace and normalization treaty, that they're backing away, the Saudis are backing away from a formal declaration of joining the Abraham Accords. The Saudis, for example, in September are going to have a conference at the UN General Assembly opening session with the French and the Palestinians to declare their support for a sovereign Palestinian state. French President Emmanuel Macron just said he is going to endorse a full sovereign Palestinian state and try to rally more countries to support that this September, even though the Security Council resolutions have said this needs to be a negotiated peace between Israel and the Palestinians. But Macron has just gotten tired. What is he really doing? Macron, the French president, is really appeasing the radical Islamists in his own country. There are more and more radical Islamists rising of political influence in Iran because they've allowed almost unfettered access from North African Arab Muslims to come into their country, and now he's got a political problem. He can't be pro-Israel because there's too many radical Islamist Muslims in his country. I'm not saying that every Arab Muslim in his country are radicals, but many are. And they are putting pressure on Macron. Stand with the Palestinian terrorists and the corrupt system of the Palestinian Authority against Israel. And that's what Macron is doing. But the Saudis seem to be supporting that. Let's watch. Let's see. But yes, there are indications right now that the Saudis are backing away from a formal peace treaty, normalization treaty with Israel. That concerns me, but I'm not ready to give up. But again, the Bible doesn't say specifically that there'll be a peace treaty. It says that it seems to strongly imply that the people of Arabia will not be joining Russia, Iran, Turkey, and these other countries to attack Israel militarily in the end of days, but will be sort of on the sidelines. And that would have been impossible to imagine for the last 80 or 100 years. It's much easier to see now because the United Arab Emirates, which is also part of the Arabian Peninsula, they have a peace treaty with Israel. So does Bahrain, so does Jordan, so does Egypt. The Saudis don't have the deal, not formally, but effectively, they want calm, quiet, and even peace with Israel. That's our YouTube exclusive. Why don't you check out the rest of our channel? Make sure you subscribe. I hope you'll comment on this and hit like and watch more of what we're talking about geopolitically, but also the prophecies that concern Israel and her neighbors. This is Joel Rosenberg with the Rosenberg Report, YouTube exclusive.